Before there was Thunder, there was Manjoume, the top-ranked first-year Obelisk Blue student at Duel Academy, and in today's video, I am going to be showing off my upgraded version of his first deck, in which he uses a strategy of summoning Hell Soldier and swarming the field with them with cards like Hell Reckless Summon, and then increasing their attack points with the effect of Hell Alliance. His deck in the anime also runs a little bit of an anti-meta strategy with cards like Hell Polymer, which he can use to control the field and really keep control of the duel and just overpower his opponent with their own cards. So this deck runs every card that Manjoume uses in his Hell deck, with the exception of Pandemonium Watchbear, because why would it run Pandemonium Watchbear? It doesn't even make sense in the anime, I don't know. Other than that, it runs every card that Manjoume uses and just runs a lot of Hell-themed cards. First of all, we of course have 3 copies of Hell Soldier, Chthonian Soldier. This card is the main monster in Manjoume's deck. His Hell Soldier is what he uses to fight Judai and Misawa. It's his main monster in the deck. Its effect is that when it's destroyed by an opponent's attacking monster and sent to the graveyard, the battle damage you took from this battle is also inflicted to your opponent. This effect is pretty powerful. This is a fairly decent effect to just inflict damage to your opponent and just share the damage. A lot of Manjoume's cards are centered around just dealing damage to both players, so this really fits in with that strategy. It has a low 1200 attack and is a level 4 warrior monster, which is fantastic. Next up, we have 2 copies of Tour Guide from the Underworld. We use this to either, Tour Guide summons itself, or you can use it to summon out Skull Knight number 2. We run 3 copies of Skull Knight number 2. Skull Knight just looks like he's meant to be a part of this deck. I mean, I look at that and I feel like it was in Manjoume's deck. It wasn't, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Next up, we run a very small Bystial engine. I feel like Manjoume would use Bystials nowadays. Bystials are sort of Hell-themed, with the Abyss part of Bystial meaning abyss, like it comes from the word abyss, and that's sort of related to Hell. So we run a small Bystial engine with 3 copies of the Bystial Lubellion. Lubellion is the main card in the engine, in that you can send it from your hand to the graveyard to add 1 Bystial monster from your deck to your hand, and those monsters will include 1 copy of Bystial Druid Swarm, 1 copy of Bystial Magnamut, and 1 copy of Bystial Saranir. These cards are the best cards to go in the engine. All of the Bystials can be special summoned from your hand by banishing a light or dark monster from either your graveyard or your opponent's graveyard, with the exception of Bystial Lubellion. You can special summon them from your hand or graveyard by tributing a level 6 or higher Dark Dragon monster. So these cards are very powerful monsters, each having 2500 attack and being level 6, allowing us to go into rank 6 XCs, and of course their effects, especially the effect of Druid Swarm, is very good for controlling the field and controlling the opponent's graveyard when you special summon them. Keep in mind, if your opponent has a monster on the field, then their effect to special summon themselves from the hand is a quick effect. Next up, we have 1 copy of Dark Arm Dragon. Surprisingly, Manjoume never actually uses Dark Arm Dragon in the series at all. However, he does of course run an Arm Dragon deck later on. But Dark Arm Dragon doesn't actually work in his Arm Dragon deck, it only works in his Hell-themed deck, in the Chthonian deck, which is what we're running here. So I thought that Dark Arm Dragon just really fit with Manjoume in general, and it works in the Hell deck, which is why I wanted to include it. It's a good card, can be special summoned by having exactly 3 dark monsters in your graveyard, and of course its effect is that you can banish 1 dark monster from your graveyard to target 1 card on the field and destroy it. Next up, we have 1 copy of Armageddon Knight. This is just to get dark monsters in the graveyard for either the summon of Dark Arm Dragon, the effect of Dark Arm Dragon, or getting off the effects of Bystial Saranir. One of the main reasons that Armageddon Knight is in the graveyard is to put Hell Soldier in your graveyard. If nothing else, you want to put Hell Soldier in your graveyard just so you can special summon him back later with Monster Reborn or Call of the Haunted, which we then use to go into our Infernal Reckless summon. Next up, we have 1 copy of Vanity's Fiend. Vanity's Fiend is a very good fit for the deck, being a level 6 Fiend monster. It goes, you can overlay it with any of your Bystial monsters. It has 2400 attack, and of course, neither player can special summon monsters. Most monsters that can get over Vanity's Fiend will be special summon monsters, so if you can get this guy out early, then that's pretty much a good game for you. Next up, we have 1 copy of Reborn Zombie. We only have this card because Manjoume runs Reborn Zombie. It's not a bad card. Okay, it's a trash card. It's not a good card, but it's not too bad. Next up, we have 1 copy of Infernal Incinerator. Infernal Incinerator is not a good card. I gotta say, it's not a good card. It can only be normal summoned or set by discarding all other cards in your hand and tributing one card you control with 2,000 or more attack. That's not a difficult summoning method for this deck. You can easily get that off of your Bystials, but just having to discard all of your cards is a really bad effect, and then the rest of its effect is not great either. However, if you have no monsters on your field, it is still a powerful monster with 2,800 attack at least, and if your opponent has even one monster, that's 3,000 attack, which means Infernal Incinerator can get over most powerful monsters. Whatever your opponent throws out, Infernal Incinerator can probably take it down if you have no other monsters, and it is one of Manjoume's strongest cards, so we had to include it. Next up, we have Mephis, the Hell General. Mephis is a fairly decent card. It's not terrible. I wouldn't use it in a normal deck, but Mephis is a level 5 monster. That's its main downside. It's a level 5 with only 1,800 attack, which isn't it's not great. It's not great stat-wise. Having to tribute a monster to get this card out isn't fantastic. Of course, we do have very easy ways to get our tribute fodder. Of course, you can tribute Skull Knight number 2 as well, who will just summon another one, which is a pretty good, that's a decent use of Skull Knight number 2, getting out Mephis. Mephis does have a fairly decent effect, however. If it attacks a defense position monster, it does piercing battle damage, and if it inflicts battle damage to your opponent discards one random card. That is a fairly decent effect. Even Spirit Reaper saw play back in the day because of its discard effect by dealing damage, so Mephis' ability to force your opponent to discard cards is that's a good effect. Unless you're against Dark Worlds, in which case you really don't want that, but Mephis is a fairly decent effect, thins out your opponent's hand, and of course does piercing battle damage, which is never a bad thing. Last of the monsters, we have one copy of Hell Poet, Hell Poema. Hell Poema is more of a Marek card, really. Marek uses this card, however, Manjoume does use this card in his deck. You can see it in his hand in episode 2 of GX, which you would have seen in my video showcasing this video. We did show Hell Poema in the hand once it was drawn, but Hell Poema is part of the Hell archetype, same with Mephis the Infernal General and Chthonian Soldier. These cards all have Hell in their Japanese name, and Infernal Incinerator as well, I believe. They all have Hell in their Japanese name, so they're all part of the Hell archetype, so it does fit with the theme of the deck. Right, now before we go into the spell cards for this deck, I would just like to give a quick talk about the new merch that is on my spread shop. On my merch shop, you can now find Reign of Thunder. That's right, Reign of Thunder, that is this deck series Manjoume merch. Also for this week, for the rest of this week, we're doing a Manjoume birthday sale. All items on my shop are 20% off for just this week. So if you want to get those items, you should really get in there now. We have 5 new Manjoume based designs for this deck series where I'm doing all of Manjoume's decks, and more designs may come in the future. If people are interested, do let me know. But the designs that we've got right now, I think, are pretty cool, so it would be great if you guys could at least check those out. If you're interested, feel free to buy them. Each design, you can get any design on any product that we have. If you click the customize button on the shop, you can select any product and put any design on it, even if the design itself doesn't show that product. Or you can just browse the products that we have listed by going to all products, or by going to the collections and look for the Reign of Thunder collection. That is the new collection for the new Manjoume products. I'm very excited about it, and I hope you guys like it too, so please do give that a look. I'll leave a link in the description. Right, moving on to the spell cards for Manjoume's deck. First off, of course, we have 2 copies of Inferno Reckless Summon, also known as Reckless Summon of Hell. This card is one of the key cards in the deck, which is why we run 2 of it. It's one of Manjoume's main cards that are used in this deck, though we only use this deck twice, really, so who are we to say? So Inferno Reckless Summon is a really good card. Obviously, we use it on Chthonian Soldier and Skull Knight number 2. Skull Knight number 2 can, of course, be special summoned with Tour Guide, and then triggers our Inferno Reckless Summon to get 2 more copies of. This is fantastic for just easily summoning out 2 rank 3 monsters right off the bat, or just swarming the field with 4 monsters to deal 4,000 points of damage if your opponent's got nothing with them. But it's also great for summoning Chthonian Soldier, which is a very good defense, having 3 copies of Hell Soldier on your field. If your opponent attacks any of them, they take a lot of damage, and if they're low on life points, then that's gonna kill them, so that's not bad at all. Also, of course, it allows us to go into our rank 4s, which we don't have a lot of, but they are some of our most powerful monsters, which we'll get into later. The third reason for running Inferno Reckless Summon is, of course, to go with Hell Alliance. Chthonian Alliance, or Hell Alliance as it's known in the Japanese version, is basically just a worse version of United We Stand, so if you want to swap this out for United We Stand, I definitely, you do that, that's probably a better idea, but of course Manjoume runs Hell Alliance, not United We Stand. Next up we have one copy of Foolish Burial, same reason we have one copy of Armageddon Knight. Of course Foolish Burial can also send the Bystial Lubellion to the graveyard, which Armageddon Knight cannot do. One copy of Monster Reborn. We run one copy of Monster Reborn, would run more if we could, but it is limited. So, Monster Reborn, great card, special summon one monster from either graveyard, don't have to explain it, neither do I have to explain Raigeki, destroy all monsters on the field. Next up we have one copy of Reinforcement of the Army. This of course is to search for our Armageddon Knight or simply our Hell Soldier, though most cases you'll be searching for Armageddon Knight. We run level 4 warriors, so why wouldn't we run Reinforcement of the Army? It's a good card and gets out our key cards. Next up we have one copy of Branded Regained and one copy of Branded Beast. These cards work with the Bystial Engine, so if you don't know, with the Bystial Engine, you use Lubellion to search for Saronir, then you get Saronir in the graveyard. There's a little more to it than this. Look it up on YouTube or just watch my showcase video for this deck and you'll see how it goes. It depends on what your opponent has. But we get Saronir in the graveyard, and with Saronir's effect you can send one Bystial monster or one branded spell or trap from your deck to the graveyard. So with this effect, you'll send Branded Regain to the graveyard, then you'll tribute one of your Bystial monsters on the field to special summon the Bystial Lubellion. Lubellion's effect then can, during your main phase, set one branded continuous spell or trap from your deck face up on the field. This means you can immediately activate Branded Beast from your deck, and Branded Beast, during the end phase, you can target one branded continuous spell or trap in your graveyard and place it on the field. So with Lubellion, you activate Branded Beast from your deck, or rather place it on the field, and then during the end phase, you put the Branded Regain that is in your graveyard on the field as well. These cards are fantastic support for the Bystial monsters. Just read what they do and you'll know what you're doing. You just use their effects. They are really powerful effects just for bringing back your Bystials, swarming the field, restocking your deck, restocking your hand, and of course getting rid of your opponent's cards. These are fantastic cards and are very easy to get on the field with your Bystial Engine. Next up we have one copy of Call of the Living Dead, Call of the Haunted. This is a card that Manjoume uses in the anime. We do see him use it to bring back Hell Soldier. We use it for the same reason, mainly to bring back Hell Soldier. Of course it can bring back almost any of your monsters, including your Infernal Incinerator, a good way to summon that. But Call of the Haunted is mainly used to bring back your Hell Soldier, which you can then summon 2 more copies of with Hell Reckless Summon. Next up we have one copy of Hell Blast, another card that Manjoume uses. It is part of the Chthonian archetype. Like I said earlier, the Chthonian deck has a lot of cards that inflict damage to both players, so Hell Blast is of course part of the archetype. It's a card that Manjoume uses and furthers that burn strategy of damaging both players. Speaking of damaging both players, we also have Ring of Destruction. This card is a very powerful card, as I'm sure you know. It was banned for a very, very long time until it was errated, but it does damage to both players and gets rid of one of your opponent's monsters, or one of yours if you prefer to deal more damage. It might finish the opponent off. Ring of Destruction is a card that Manjoume uses, though he doesn't actually use it in his Chthonian deck. He uses it in his North Academy deck, which he finds, collects cards from around the place. But it is still a card that Manjoume uses, and I do think that he would use it in his Hell deck if he had it, or, maybe he does and we just didn't see it. So Ring of Destruction fits perfectly with the deck, deals damage to both players, destroys one monster. It's a good card and it just looks like it fits in the deck. I mean, look at that thing, especially the Japanese artwork. That's pretty crazy. I love that. Next up we have one copy of Hell Polymer. Hell Polymer it's an okay card. It's not a bad card. Manjoume does use it. Chthonian Polymer's effect is that you can activate it when your opponent fusion summons a monster, tribute one monster to take control of that fusion monster. This is not a bad card for today's day and age. A lot of people are running hero decks still. It's not, not a bad deck, but a lot of people nowadays are running fusion monsters, especially the branded fusion monsters. The branded deck, of course, is a fusion strategy, so Hell Polymer works good against that, as you would have seen in my deck showcase video. Next up, we have 3 copies of Eradicator Epidemic Virus. Eradicator Epidemic is a very, very powerful card that can just destroy all of your opponent's spells or all of their traps that are in their hand and everyone that they draw for the next 3 turns, and all of the ones on their field as well. Wait, is it on the field? Yes, on their field as well. Where is it? Yes it is. So Eradicator Epidemic Virus can obviously be activated by tributing any of your Dark Bystial monsters, which are very easy to summon, and you basically always have a Bystial on the field when running this deck, so Eradicator Epidemic is good for that. It's a great addition to the... Make plane go away, it's making a very noisy plane. It is a great addition to the deck, and of course if you heard about what happened in, I think it was Germany, Eradicator Epidemic can just straight up win you the game in a lot of cases nowadays. Getting rid of your opponent's spells is a devastating effect and very easy to pull off with this deck. We also have 1 copy of Grinning Grave Virus, just to get rid of your opponent's monsters. All the monsters that they draw for the next 3 turns will be destroyed if you tributed a monster with 2,000 or more attack to activate this card, which again is easy since we run Bystials. Finally, we have 2 copies of Skill Drain. I do think that Manjoume would use Skill Drain. Like I said before, he likes to control the field. He's a bit of a meta player, he's really good, so since the deck can run Skill Drain, it should run Skill Drain. You might actually want to swap out a Grinning Grave Virus for a 3rd copy of Skill Drain. I only have 2 because Grinning Grave is a little bit more fun than running just Skill Drain. You know, Skill Drain kind of just ends the game and nobody does anything except attacks, which isn't good for a video for starters, and it's not as fun. But if you want to run 3 copies of Skill Drain, I do highly recommend it. You can even swap out a Chthonian Polymer for another copy of Skill Drain. That would be a good use as well. Of course, Manjoume does use Chthonian Polymer. It doesn't really prevent anything. It doesn't even prevent the effect of Hell Soldier, because that activates when it's in the graveyard. So the only thing we really have to worry about is Tour Guide from the Underworld. Now that's not too bad of a loss, really, to be honest, to get a bunch of monsters with 2,500 attack while your opponent can do nothing. Skill Drain is a very powerful card, and this deck can very much run it. Finally, for the extra deck, I'll just go through this real quick. Every monster that I chose are monsters that I think Manjoume would use, or at least I don't think he would shy away from them. So, we have 1 copy of Raider's Knight. Raider's Knight is our main rank 4. We use him to then go into our 1 copy of Ark Rebellion X Siege Dragon, which is a very powerful monster, can be summoned with the effect of Raider's Knight. Next up for our other rank 4s, we have Dark Rebellion X Siege Dragon, another powerful monster that's been used in the meta in the past. We have 1 copy of Evil Swarm Nightmare. This card is based on Boss Raider, which is a card that is used in a lot of decks that run sort of a fiendish hell theme, so I thought Evil Swarm Nightmare was a fitting card. We have 1 copy of Evil Swarm Thanatos, again, looks very hell-like. Actually, there's a very similar resemblance to Mephis, the Hell General, so I thought it was a good fit for the deck and has a decent effect. We have 1 copy of Numbers 24, Dragulus the Vampiric Dragon. This card again fits the theme and is summoned with our Bystial. This is one of our rank 6 monsters to go with the Bystial engine. We have 1 copy of number 48, Shadow Lich. Rank 3s and rank 6s are the main ones that we're going to go into. Of course, rank 3s go into with the Tour Guide and Skull Knight combo, and rank 6s with the Bystial monsters. Next up we have another rank 6 Pilgrim Reaper, another rank 3, the Phantom Knights of Breaksword, and finally, Wallow, Founder of the Drudge Dragons. That's all for our Xyz monsters. Again, they all have different effects. They're quite useful, pretty powerful monsters. A lot of them have been used in the meta, or some are even still being used, and they are very easy to get out with this deck. And of course, they all fit the theme as well, except for Ark Rebellion Xyz Dragon. He doesn't really fit the theme. I mean, he does fit Manjoume, I think. I think he works well with Manjoume, but of course, Raider's Knight definitely fits the theme and gets out this very powerful monster. Next up for our Link monsters, we have 1 copy of Appaloosa, Bow of the Goddess. This is very similar to Light and Darkness Dragon, which if you don't know is Manjoume's main card in the GX manga. So I thought it was pretty fitting to have this card in the deck, and it is a meta card. Everyone likes Appaloosa, it's a good card, and I think Manjoume would run it. Same thing goes with IP Masquerena, Nightmare Unicorn. Unchained Abomination is also a good card. It's just full-on destruction with this card. Anything that, like, basically anytime anything happens, you just blow something up, and I think that's very fitting for Manjoume, and of course, its appearance just fits the theme of the deck. And finally, Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. Underworld, hell, it works, and it is a good meta card. You know, everyone uses Underworld Goddess. It's a good card for getting rid of one of your opponent's cards and then just sealing off effects. Underworld Goddess is a very powerful card. So that's all for the main deck. I'm going to talk a little bit about the side deck. The side deck isn't so much of a side deck as it is other options you can include, such as we've got Chthonian Emperor Dragon. Chthonian Emperor Dragon is of course part of the Chthonian archetype, however Manjoume doesn't actually use this card, so I didn't include it because it sucks. It's a Gemini monster. Gemini monsters aren't good, but if you want to include it, it's not a bad inclusion. Same with Darkblade, Captain of the Evil World. Manjoume does use the original Darkblade later on in his Union deck, so this card definitely fits with Manjoume, and of course fits with the Hell theme, and is not a bad card. However, it is a pretty situational card. Once per turn, you can banish a Dark monster from your graveyard to target a level 4 or lower light monster your opponent controls and equip it to this card. That is a good effect if your opponent runs light monsters, so much better for the side deck, but does definitely fit the theme. We have 2 copies of Hell Polymer in the side deck. This is an actual side deck card. If you're going up against a deck that runs fusion monsters, then you do want Hell Polymer. Even Manjoume himself says that, you know, when he uses this card, he says he put it in because he studied Judai's deck during the entrance exam, knows that he uses fusion a lot, so this was his trap for that. So if you wanted to, you can swap out the Hell Polymer in your deck, put that in your side deck, and put another skill drain or something. That would be a better choice because this is very much a side deck card. There will be duels where this just has no application whatsoever. However, if you prefer a better version of Hell Polymer, it would be Crackdown. Crackdown is basically just a better version of Hell Polymer. It works on any monster that, you know, even whether they're fusion or not, so it's just better in that way. It can be used against any deck. It's not a fantastic card, but it is pretty good. And so we have two more copies of Grinning Grave Virus again against decks that what you're really worried about is the monsters more than the spell and traps. You might want to put in more Grinning Graves. You might also want to consider Deck Devastation Virus, Crush Card Virus, or Full Force Virus. Something interesting to note is that Deck Devastation Virus in the anime version, in the Japanese version, is called, I believe, Deck Destruction Virus of the Demon, or of the Devil, sorry. Deck Destruction Virus of the Devil, so that sort of fits with the Hell theme. Same with Full Force Virus as Deck Destruction Virus of Evil, or was that Grinning Grave? One of them, I'm pretty sure it was Full Force, but yeah, they fit the theme a little bit more, and yeah, they're just not bad cards. Crush Card is not really a great card, so I wouldn't really recommend it, but any of the other Virus cards, definitely good, and I do think they fit the theme, and of course work with any of the monsters in the deck. Finally, last one to talk about is Pandemonium Watchbear. We do see this card in Manjoume's hand, though he has no reason to run it. It is Pandemonium support, and Pandemonium is Archfiend support. And Archfiends are used later in GX, not by Manjoume, so I really don't know why they put this in his hand, but he does technically run it, and it is part of the Hell archetype. A better option, if you wanted to include this, just to make it more Manjoume-like, I would suggest that a better option would be Emissary from Pandemonium, though this isn't a great option either. It does open the way to include Synchro monsters in your deck, because it is a tuner monster, so if you wanted to add Synchros to your deck, then Emissary of Pandemonium is a fairly decent choice. It's a pretty good choice for, you know, summoning powerful Synchro monsters. You can very easily get out a level 8 with this card and your Skull Knight or your Tour Guide. So it's not a bad card at all, though without Synchro monsters, without other level 5s, really, it's not the fantastic card, it's not the best card, and doesn't really, you know, it's not good for the deck, but it is a fairly decent option if you want to include Synchro monsters. So that is all for today's video. That is Manjoume's Hell deck, Hell's Thunder. If you want to see this deck in action, then do check out the video that I posted the other day by either clicking the card, you know, the little eye symbol above, or by waiting till the end card. This deck is a lot of fun. It's not very meta, but it is good fun, and if you like Manjoume, then do be sure to subscribe, because this month we are going through all of Manjoume's decks. August 1st was Manjoume's birthday, so, you know, we're celebrating Manjoume really this month. Don't forget that there is a Manjoume birthday sale going on the shop right now, and finally, shout out to Ariana Tui, who is not only editing this video, but is also the top commenter for last month. She is our first top commenter, winner of the top commenter competition. So huge shout out to her. She left a lot of comments, was really, she really wanted to be the winner for the first month. So big shout out to Ariana Tui. Thank you for all your comments and congratulations. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. My name has been Senkara, and until next time, see ya.